Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. People demand freedom of speech as compensation for the freedom of thought which they seldom use. To dare is to lose one's footing momentarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself. I see it all perfectly. There are two possible situations. One can either do this or that. My honest opinion and my friendly advice is this: do it or don't do it. You will regret both. Our life always expresses the result of our dominant thoughts. Patience is necessary, and one cannot reap immediately where one has sown. The tyrant dies, and his rule is over. The martyr dies, and his rule begins. The highest and most beautiful things in life are not to be heard about, not to be read about, or seen about, if one will, are to be lived. Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. People understand me so poorly that they don't even understand my complaint about them not understanding me. Take away paradox from a thinker, and you have a professor. A man who, as a physical being, is always turned toward the outside, thinking that his happiness lies outside him, finally turns inward and discovers that the source is within him. How absurd men are! They never use the liberties they have. They demand those they do not have. They have freedom of thought. They demand freedom of speech. Personality is only ripe when a man has made the truth his own. It belongs to the imperfection of everything human that man can only attain his desire by passing through its opposite. Be that self which one truly is. There is nothing with which every man is so afraid as getting to know how enormously much he is capable of doing and becoming. At the bottom of enmity between strangers is indifference. Far from idleness being the root of all evil, it is rather the only true good. Trouble is the common denominator of living. It is the great equalizer. Love is all. It gives all. It takes all. Don't forget to love yourself. Prayer does not change God, but it changes him who prays. Once you label me, you negate me. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. Face the facts of being what you are, for that is what changes what you are. God creates out of nothing. Wonderful, you say? Yes, to be sure. But he does what is still more wonderful. He makes saints out of sinners. Boredom is the root of all evil, the despairing refusal to be oneself. It is so hard to believe because it is so hard to obey. The truth is a snare. You cannot have it without being caught. You cannot have the truth in such a way that you catch it, but only in such a way that it catches you. During the first period of man's life, the greatest danger is not taking the risk. Life has its own hidden forces which you can only discover by living. Marriage brings one into fatal connection with custom and tradition. The traditions and customs are like the wind and weather, altogether incalculable. Love does not alter the beloved, it alters itself. Faith is the highest passion in a human being. Many in every generation may not come that far, but none come farther. I feel as if I were a piece in a game of chess. When my opponent says of it, that piece cannot be moved. Purity of heart is to will one thing. It was completely fruitless to quarrel with the world, whereas the quarrel with oneself was occasionally fruitful, and always, she had to admit, interesting. There are, as is known, insects that die in the moment of fertilization. So it is with joy. Life's highest and most splendid moment of enjoyment is accompanied by death. The more a man can forget, the greater the number of metamorphoses which his life can undergo. The more a man can remember, the more divine his life becomes.